What if Superman, instead of being the hero we know, was a villain? What would a world be like where a creature with godlike powers but no morality grew up among us? Imagine a being from the stars, raised by humans as if he were one of them, but instead of using his powers for good, he chooses to follow a dark path. This is Brightburn, son of darkness, a being that defies all our expectations of what it means to have extraordinary power. In this video, we're going to explore the bizarre anatomy and powers of Brightburn and understand how this seemingly ordinary boy became an unprecedented threat to humanity. Stay with us until the end of this video to find out why Brightburn is one of the most terrifying figures in the superhero universe, or rather, supervillain universe. His story. Brightburn, whose real name is Brandon Breyer, is a 12-year-old boy, but don't be fooled by his innocent appearance. His origin is alien, and he came to Earth after his mysterious landing in a small town in Kansas. Tori and Kyle Breyer, a couple who dreamed of having children, found the alien baby and raised him as their own, unaware that within him resided a force capable of destroying the world. For a while, Brandon's life was fairly ordinary. He was loved by his adoptive parents and had a seemingly normal childhood, except for never getting hurt, sick, or suffering any physical injury. But as he entered puberty, something inside Brandon began to change. He started hearing voices, having strange dreams, and eventually discovering that he possessed abilities that defied known logic and physics. These new abilities, instead of being used for good, led Brandon down a dark path. He transforms into Brightburn, an entity that, unlike traditional superheroes, is driven by violent instincts and an uncontrollable thirst for power. Throughout the movie, we see how these powers manifest and how Brandon's behavior deteriorates, leading him to commit acts of violence and destruction even against those who loved him most. What are all his powers? Brightburn, or Brandon Breyer, is endowed with a set of abilities that place him among the most powerful entities ever seen on Earth. These powers emerge over time, making him increasingly lethal. Let's explore each ability with a more technical, almost scientific perspective to understand how these gifts work and what makes them so terrifying. 1. Superhuman strength. Brightburn's strength is supernatural. He can lift heavy vehicles, crush metal with his hands, and destroy entire structures. Compared to the average human, Brandon operates on a completely different scale. The source of this strength may be related to his extraterrestrial biology, likely including much denser muscles and bones than humans. This not only gives him incredible physical strength, but also the ability to withstand impacts that would crush any human being. 2. Invulnerability. Brandon's invulnerability is almost absolute. He is immune to bullets, knives, and even large impacts. His skin, muscles, and bones appear to be made of a material unknown on Earth, possibly a type of alien biomaterial that is incredibly dense and resilient. This unique cellular composition prevents any physical damage, making him invulnerable to common injuries. The only exception is the metal from his spaceship, which seems to be made of a material that can interact with his biology lethally. 3. Regeneration. Despite his invulnerability, Brandon possesses a regenerative capability. When injured by the metal from his spaceship, he was able to heal quickly. This power suggests that his cells have an extremely high regenerative capacity, allowing him to recover damaged tissues in a matter of minutes or even seconds. This makes him even harder to defeat, as even in the rare cases where he is wounded, he heals almost instantly. 4. Flight.
Brandon, I'm sorry. Oh, Brandon!
Brightburn's ability to fly is fascinating, both in terms of speed and precision. He can fly at incredible speeds, which suggests that he can manipulate gravity around him or generate some form of internal propulsion. The physics behind Brandon's flight is unknown, but it seems to involve a form of telekinesis applied to his own body, allowing him to defy gravity and move freely through the air in all directions. 5. Superhuman speed. Brandon's speed is another factor that makes him almost unstoppable. He can move so fast that he is practically invisible to the human eye. This ability may be linked to his superhuman strength, allowing him to move his muscles at incredibly high speeds without suffering damage. Additionally, his perception must also be superhuman, enabling him to process information at speeds that ordinary humans cannot. 6. Heat vision.
Don't. I'm sorry.
Brightburn's heat vision is one of his most devastating abilities. He can emit concentrated energy beams from his eyes that are hot enough to melt or cut through almost any material. These beams likely function by emitting high-energy radiation, similar to lasers but with much greater intensity. Before activating this ability, Brandon's eyes glow a deep red, which may indicate the buildup of energy before being released. 7. Telekinesis. Brandon also possesses telekinesis, allowing him to move objects with his mind. This ability suggests that he can manipulate invisible forces, such as gravitational or magnetic fields, to interact with his surroundings. He can rip doors off their hinges or manipulate large objects from a distance, making him an even more dangerous opponent as he can attack without even needing to get close. 8. Technological manipulation. His ability to manipulate technology is a unique aspect of his powers. Brandon can influence the functioning of electronic devices, causing them to fail or behave erratically. This suggests a form of technopathy where he can interact with electronic circuits and digital systems directly with his mind. He can cause short circuits, shut down devices, or even take control of electronics, making any attempt to use technology against him practically useless. 9. Electromagnetic disruption. The electromagnetic disruption that Brandon causes when using his powers is a side effect of his presence. When he activates his abilities, he can create disturbances that affect electrical devices, like flickering lights or cars suddenly stopping. This could result from an interaction between his energy field and the normal electromagnetic fields around us, creating interference that destabilizes electronic systems. 10. Fire manipulation. Finally, fire manipulation is an ability Brandon uses to cause large-scale destruction. He can create and control flames, suggesting that he can manipulate temperature around him or even control chemical reactions involving combustion. This ability further expands his arsenal, allowing him to devastate large areas quickly. How powerful is he? Analyzing Brightburn's powers, it becomes clear that he is in a completely different league from most superpowered beings we know. But just how powerful is he? Let's explore the magnitude of his abilities and compare them to other iconic characters from both the comic book universe and cinema. 1. Power scale. Brightburn possesses a set of abilities that place him on an almost divine power level. Not only does he have superhuman abilities, but also near absolute invulnerability, making him an existential threat to any form of life on Earth. In terms of destructive potential, he is capable of decimating entire cities effortlessly and even causing global-scale devastation. His power is so vast that despite still being a teenager in human age terms, he has already surpassed any human limits in terms of strength, speed, and resilience. The combination of his strength, invulnerability, and heat vision, for example, puts him far beyond any known human or weapon. 2. Comparison with other characters. To better understand how powerful Brightburn is, let's compare him to some of the most iconic characters from comics and cinema. Superman. Comparisons with Superman are inevitable, given that both share an alien origin and a similar set of powers. However, while Superman is guided by a strong sense of morality and justice, Brightburn follows a path of destruction and chaos. In terms of raw power, Brightburn could rival Superman, especially considering that he lacks the same moral limitations that would prevent him from using his powers to their fullest extent. Homelander. Like Brightburn, Homelander is a superpowered being created in an environment that shaped him to use his powers in an authoritarian and cruel manner. The crucial difference is that Homelander was manipulated by a corporation and the government, while Brightburn followed his own destructive nature. In a direct fight, both could cause significant damage, but Brightburn's unpredictability and lack of humanity could give him an advantage. Andrew Detmer, Chronicle. Andrew from the film Chronicle is another example of a teenager who develops supernatural powers and succumbs to darkness. While Andrew is powerful, his telekinetic powers and gradual descent into evil are less extreme than Brightburn's, whose alien nature makes him even more dangerous and unpredictable. 3. Limitations and vulnerabilities. Despite his near unlimited power, Brightburn is not completely invulnerable. His only known weakness is the metal from his spaceship, which can injure him. This is similar to Superman's kryptonite, but unlike Superman, Brightburn's weakness is much less accessible, making him even harder to defeat. This vulnerability is the only thing preventing Brightburn from being truly invincible. Another point to consider is that, despite his immense strength, Brandon is still a child in many aspects, emotionally unstable and impulsive. This can lead to rash decisions and mistakes, which could be exploited by someone who understands his motivations and weaknesses. 4. Destruction potential. Brightburn not only possesses power but also an innate desire to use it to conquer and destroy. His potential for destruction is vast, as evidenced by the plane crash at the end of the film, which he causes to cover up his crimes and eliminate witnesses. If left unchecked, he could easily become a global threat, capable of destroying nations and ultimately wiping out humanity itself. 5. Moral and psychological implications. Brightburn represents the darkest side of the superhero myth. He is the incarnation of what happens when a being with godlike powers chooses to follow a path of darkness instead of light. His presence raises profound moral and psychological questions about the nature of power, responsibility, and humanity's ability to cope with threats beyond our understanding. Brightburn shows us what happens when the idea of a savior is twisted and becomes a force of terror. His story is not just about a powerful being, but about how power without moral boundaries can become the most dangerous weapon of all. Conclusion. In Brightburn, Son of Darkness, we witness the birth of one of the most terrifying figures in the superhero universe. Brandon Breyer, with all his bizarre abilities and total lack of morality, represents the ultimate nightmare, a being with the power of a god and the will to use it to destroy humanity. This film serves as a chilling warning about the dangers of uncontrolled power and reminds us that sometimes the greatest threats come from the most unexpected source. Brightburn is not just a character, he is a reflection of our deepest fears about what can happen when absolute power falls into the wrong hands. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more analyses of the most intriguing and dangerous characters in the universe of cinema and comics. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if you had powers like Brightburn's? See you next time.